This afternoon we are going to shed some light on an economic subject which is very prevalent right now, and that is inflation. Every nation is deeply worried about inflation. They are going sick worrying about inflation, especially in the Western countries. America is the worst hit nation of inflation, where inflation is around 8.5%, came down from 9.5%. So, titles of today is Inflation is the Malady of Rich Nations. Why we ready? Why we ready? Where our governor of RBI, when he was asked one day, what are you going to do about the inflation? He retorted to the reporter that I'm not going to do anything about inflation because inflation is sign of rich nation. India is getting richer. So we are definitely going to have to deal with inflation. Poor nations don't have any inflation because the people have no consumerism. They don't have purchasing power. But India is getting ahead towards the wealthy nations row. So we definitely are going to have to deal with and have to face inflation because Indians have plenty of money, plenty of consumerism, and plenty of purchasing power. So definitely they are going to spend more, and they are definitely going to ramp up, jack up inflation a little bit higher. I have prepared 5 points to elaborate what YV Reddy meant by that. He was actually saying all this thing in a joking manner. But every nation has to worry about inflation. You cannot live with inflation. You have to deal with inflation as soon as possible. Inflation about 2 or 3% can definitely devastate your economy. When inflation was around 11% in India, at that time this question was posed to YV Reddy, and YV Reddy answered in a joking manner. But joking manner, nevertheless, it is true that when people spend lots of money, people have lots of money to spend. Consumerism is absolutely astronomical, and the purchasing power of the consumer is touching the nova. Those nations definitely are going to experience inflation. So he is absolutely right when he said that inflation is the malady of rich countries. But at the same time, he meant it as a joke, as a humor. So point number one is consumers of the wealthy nations spend prodigally. Now you are rich, you are a rich nation, you have every single source of earning available, you are earning in much more than you need, then you are going to become greedy about having second car and more jewelry and more clothes and more of these and more of that. So many things you are going to buy. You are definitely going to buy lots of food, and very expensive food, Veblen's goods, not Giffen's good, not Dr. Giffen's good, but Dr. Veblen's goods you are going to purchase. And you're going to purchase without checking the price even. You are going to pick the things that you need, and whatever the cashier at the checkout point is going to ask you for paying, you definitely are going to pay keeping your eyes closed because you have lots of money and lot more is coming in. Number two, dinosaurial consumption of goods. Now, you're rich, so your appetite for consuming goods is dinosaurian. You're never going to be satisfied. Then more you consume, the more inflation is going to ramp up, because when the people spend lots of money without having any kind of self-control, these nations have a higher inflation rate because the price of the goods are going to be higher because of the higher demand and the lower supply. As you know, the principle of economy is that demand goes up, the price goes up. If supply does not go up, so supply actually cannot meet the demand. Supply just cannot be adequate for the demand of the market, and as such, the price of every single thing is going to be ramped up. We're going to be jacked up. Number 3, country has mostly Dr. Veblen's consumers. Dr. Veblen's consumers are all rich consumers. Opposite to that, Dr. Giffen's consumers are all poor consumers. Though India has about 70% consumer group hailing from the Dr. Giffen's definition, Dr. Giffen's side, 30% Babylons, but who are so super rich, so filthy rich that they actually ply the Indian economy and jacking up the inflation by buying car after car, two-wheeler after two-wheeler, clothes after clothes, jewelry after jewelry, houses after houses, land after land, and they buy all kinds of food that Americans eat. This kind of food they eat, and they actually push up inflation to the Nova from Nadir. Point number 4 is, consumers have limitless power of purchasing than availability of the goods. India has 145 crore people. Now think that only 45 crore people have lots of money, limitless purchasing power. They don't have to think about money actually chasing them. They never chase money. Now these kind of people, industrialists and the professionals and the doctors and the judges and the collectors and the governors and the politicians, these kind of people are actually making the difference in the economy. They spend so much they spend that sometimes ago I read in Times of India that one of the ministers of India went to England, and when over there, when his meeting was over, he went to a supermarket and bought so many things that he had to hire a truck. He had to hire a truck in London to fill all these goods and bring it to New Delhi. Our minister, poor minister wearing slipper and a very loin dhotia and a very cheap khadi jabba, and the poor guy has no anything but money, nothing but money and money. So these kind of people are actually racking up the inflation. Next, Dutch disease. It is a disease, but it is not a disease as we translate it. Dutch disease is an economic terminology in which demand of the goods is so high, production is also so high that eventually the manufacturing firms give up, and they cannot actually produce any more to meet the demand of the consumers. Consumers' demand has been rising astronomically, but production cannot rise astronomically. Eventually, all these manufacturing firms run out of the material, run out of people, run out of capital, and what happens is that the order is, for example, 100 million firecrackers, but they can make only 50 million firecrackers. So they let the profit go for 50 million firecrackers, which is known as Dutch disease. So when the nation suffers from the Dutch disease, inflation is definitely tend to go northward. It's going to touch the astronomical level, is going to touch the nova. So these are the 5 factors jacking up the inflation, and Dr. Y.V. Reddy jokingly and humorously laughed at inflation, and they said that I'm not worried about inflation because inflation is actually the disease of a rich nation, it proves. India is getting a richer nation in parity with the Western countries where also inflation is high. So that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for listening. God bless everyone on this planet. Amen.